Chapter 471 Angakok's idea of leveling. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. The fiery pit of hell. When Angakok said that the planet was inhospitable to most life forms, he was not kidding at all, as the temperature of the planet was simply unbearable. Max felt like he was in a perpetual sauna, breathing in hot steam instead of air, as his insides revolted against the high heat, and it did not take him 30 minutes on the planet to develop sickness as he began puking his guts out. From space the planet looked something like a black cracked mass of disjointed land and lava, but the surface of the planet was even worse, with the only rocks in sight being obsidian and basalt, which felt like superheated cooking surfaces to touch. The local life included phoenixes, flying magma hounds, flame lions, lava slugs, butterfly-looking creatures with flaming wings, and earth Komodo lizards. According to his initial observation, the phoenixes were the apex predators, killing everything they fancied, while the lava slugs were the bottom rung of the society, which seemed to be the local herbivores deriving energy by diving into pools of lava for sustenance. Apart from these, the Komodo lizards seemed to be the only creatures that were not completely fire-type beasts and did not possess any fire-based attacks. Max was not at all happy that he was thrown on this abnormal planet to hunt by Angakok, as no matter which beast he looked at, none of them were an easy target for him to kill. Although he had experience killing flame lions prior to this excursion, the flame lions on this planet were absolutely unlike any beast that Max had ever encountered before. The flame lions on this planet looked nasty, having builds over 9 feet long and ripped muscle frames that put their vascular veins on full display. The flaming manes covering their head were nearly a meter in length, and the flamethrowers that these lions threw out were absolutely nasty and capable of melting down even volcanic rock. To make matters worse, they were pack hunters, hunting their prey in small groups of 3.5 lions, making it even more impossible for Max to pick them on as his targets. Max saw them as they pack hunted a Komodo lizard and was forced to shut his eyes close as he saw them rip the poor thing apart limb for limb in a one-sided slaughter fest that lasted 20 minutes. Nope, not going after them today, Max thought mentally, as the coward within him kicked in and told him to stay away from these beasts until he got a better hang of his surroundings. In the end, Max decided to go hunting for the Komodo lizard too, as he identified it as the easiest target that was worth some EXP, while Angakok made a makeshift residence for himself and secluded himself inside it. Earth Komodo Lizard, LV-430, Tier 4. A part of the lesser dragon species, the Earth Komodo lizard is a specialist in digging through rock and hunting its prey via ambush. Note: beware of its sharp claws and poisonous teeth. Max inspected an earth lizard that was stalking a lava slug as he wondered what the best course of action to take it down would be. On one hand, the Komodo lizard had no long-range attacking capabilities and mostly relied on ambush hunting to take down its prey. It was also a very proficient digger, and if Max failed to isolate it from the earth or one-shot it, chances were that it would dig and run away in a long-range battle. Grabbing the Goldman sword, Max prepared to launch a sword laced with sword intent to distract the lizard while he quickly circled around and chopped off its head. However, before he could ever let out his first attack, his way of the wind senses went into overdrive as he detected an ambush. Fuck, thought Max as he ducked, narrowly dodging the paws of the flame lion who had managed to sneak up on him. Max thought he had great senses, but he never detected the pack of 4 lions sneaking up on him while he was so focused on killing the Komodo. Summon nether beasts, giant summoning, Buddha's avatar. Max wasted no time in turning the numbers advantage to his side while he went into his defensive mode by activating Buddha's avatar. 15 nether beasts and 3 giants soon surrounded a golden Buddha avatar of Max as he commanded them to take the lions down. Since he was dragged into this fight, he was now going to make sure it was going to be the last one these damn lions ever fought. Meanwhile, Cervantes, its official father, the Night King, has defected. The green, yellow and white dragons have declared a rebellion against Monarch Dragoon, and the Mercenary King has refused the invitation to the upcoming Council of Monarchs, which only confirms our fears that he might be on the verge of defecting himself, Prince Amon said as he reported grim news to his father. For the last 1.5 years, ever since Shikuni's death and the fall of the Thunder Nation, the balance of powers within the Light faction had broken, and Cervantes had foreseen the advent of war. He and the One Knights had started to expand their military explosively and started stocking up on weapons and critical supplies before all things went to help, but with the defection of the Night King becoming official, it was sure to cause a shit-storm to stir at the upcoming Council of Monarchs in 7 days' time. So the rat has decided to show his true colors. I knew he was a spineless coward but never thought he would fall to the depths of becoming Lucifer's lackey. I expected more from Avens, but in the end there is only so much that you can expect from fucking mercenaries whose morals are bought and sold by gold. Prepare the army, son, increase patrol at our borders and be ready to head into war. Increase the taxes on the locals by 5% and make military service compulsory for all males 18 years and above for 3 years. The chaos in the universe has resurfaced after 50 years of peace between the two factions. But the light could have never coexisted with the dark. This war was bound to break out one day or another, but one thing is for certain, that at the end of this great war, there will be but one faction left standing, Cervantes said as he clutched his fists and mentally prepared for the storm that was to come ahead. Chapter 472, A Tough Fight. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The giants tried to kick the lions away, but the beasts that looked like they were taking 15 shots of steroids a day were too nimble for the giants to land a foot on them as they circumvented their attacks and bit off huge chunks of flesh from the giants' legs. However, while they were dealing with the giants, the nether beasts did not give them a moment of respite, trying to bite chunks of flesh from their body as well as they covered the lions with cuts and bruises, making them bleed a little. While 3 of the 4 lions were busy fighting the 3 giants and the nether beasts, one of them focused all of its attention on Max, but soon found out that Max was a trickier opponent to face than it expected. Its claws that could tear through iron like it was paper bounced off harmlessly against Max's golden form, and when it tried to change its approach and attack Max with a flamethrower, it quickly found out that 2 could play that game as Max retaliated with a flamethrower of his own. The 2 flamethrowers clashed, creating a massive explosion, and to the beast's absolute shock and horror, Max's attack turned out to be superior in the end, as it not only neutralized the lion's flame but managed to burn its body in the end. 3500 The lion roared at Max, angry at this new opponent that it had never seen before to be so strong, as it contemplated between trying to attack again and retreating in the face of the enemy's strength. In the end it decided to turn tail and try and attack Max only when it had advantage in numbers, but Max already saw through its tactic and decided he would not let it run so easily. "Oh no you don't," Max said as he summoned a devastating bolt of lightning to floor the lion. Kaboom! A lightning bolt that sounded much like the lion's roar but much more terrifying hit the flame lion square on its back, crippling it as it caused significant damage. 55,000 critical hit. System notification. You have stunned your opponent for 5 seconds via lightning damage. Even a beast is more resilient to lightning than Eden, Max thought as he moved much slower than usual in his golden Buddha form and sliced his sword to claim the paralyzed lion's neck. System notification. You have killed a Tier 4 flame lion within a neutral battle zone. You have received plus 70,000 EXP. Plus 1 flame essence vial. Max claimed the head of the flame lion in joy, as the other 3 teammates of the dead lion roared in horror. "Oh, stop shouting, you salivating rabid cats, I'm sending you all to hell right alongside him," Max said as he activated blood manipulation, and used the bleeding blood of the lions from their fight against the nether beasts and the giants, as well as the blood from the body of the decapitated dead lion to create blood chains and blood blades to fight against the remaining lions. On this planet where he did not necessarily hide his identity as a primordial vampire, Max had the advantage of being able to fight with all his abilities at his disposal without fearing his identity being exposed. With his blood abilities on full display, Max was able to turn the tide of the battle completely in his favor and suppress the 3 lions. With the blood chains restricting the lions, the nether beasts were able to make more proactive hits on the lions, as they soon realized that if they had any chance of making it out of this battle alive, they needed to target the caster of the blood manipulation magic. Redirecting all their attention towards Max, the three lions desperately tried to break his defenses, but they found it incredibly hard to break past the Golden Buddha's physical defenses, while the fire attacks that they could conjure had absolutely no effect on Max, who had an advanced fire resistance. What continued from then onwards was a lengthy battle as the lions slowly lost HP under the relentless attacks of Max and his melee summons, slowly succumbing to their deaths after a hard-fought battle. System notification. You have killed a Tier 4 Flame Lion within a neutral battle zone. You have received plus 71,000 EXP. Plus 1 Flame Lion main, system notification. You have killed a Tier 4 Flame Lion within a neutral battle zone. You have received plus 73,000 EXP. Plus 1 Flame Lion Claw, system notification. You have killed a Tier 4 Flame Lion within a neutral battle zone. You have received plus 72,000 EXP. Plus 1 Flame Lion Teeth. Max panted as he took a look at his EXP bar, which had risen from 33% to 83%, realizing that he needed to kill 8 flame lions daily to just level up once. Dispelling his Golden Buddha body, Max reflected on the sheer difficulty of the task that Angekok had given him to reach the peak of his tier in under 40 days. Now with his Thunder Blast, Golden Buddha body and summoning skills on cooldown, if he tried to take on another group of flame lions, the battle would not go as smoothly as this one, and he still needed to kill 4 more and then some to stay on track to complete Angekok's target. Fuck, why can't I get a more reasonable instructor for once? Max wondered as he wanted to curse Angekok for setting such an impossible target for him. No time to complain, boy, bite the bullet and go back to stalking the Komodo. It's going to be a long day ahead, Drax said as he reminded Max that there was no point in complaining and that he better get back to hunting. //////n. I can no longer paste the entire stat panel in the author notes below because it exceeds the word limit web novel has set for that section. Do suggest me what should I do to post the stat panel now, whether I should post it within the chapter whenever necessary or shorten it and remove the weapons and other sections /////. Chapter 473 The Hunt. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Max returned to the makeshift hut made by Angekok, covered in cuts and bruises from head to toe, as he looked like a homeless beggar having undergone a ruthless street fight rather than a dignified lord of a territory. Angekok spared a glance at him and then outside the tent as he said, sloppy, you rely on your skill set too much and not enough on your basic stats. The skills are just supplementary, the most important part of a fighter's skill set is his basic abilities. You should be able to kill a flame lion with nothing but your bare hands if the situation demands it. And you are a primordial vampire for my sake, boy. You have absolute control over your own blood flow. Stop bleeding like a girl on periods. Max was speechless after this speech by Angekok. He did not quite understand what the old shaman god expected from him, to be able to kill a flame lion with his bare hands or to waste his energy by maintaining his blood manipulation ability to stop a few small cuts from bleeding small trickles of blood. Nonetheless, he did close his wounds and half expectantly looked around to see if Angekok had cooked him a delicious and nutritious meal just like Kremeth would do after an intense training session, but was disappointed to find out that Angekok did nothing of the sort. The shaman god was not a master, he was not even a teacher, he was just someone tagging along with Max, overseeing his progress for reasons unknown. There was no dinner waiting for him after a long day of fighting, and there seemed to be no intentions of there ever being dinner in the future either, which meant that Max had to learn to drink the blood of the local creatures here to survive. Thankfully, he always carried 3 days' worth of emergency blood rations in his inventory for unexpected surprises, because of which he was able to drink relatively delicious human blood today as he went to sleep after a day of intense hunting. Early next day, most of Max's skills were still on a short cooldown, with a day not being completed since he last used them, but since starting early never hurt one, Max resumed his routine of searching for prey and stalking them around to look for a suitable opportunity to ambush. Today, Max was more paranoid than yesterday, looking around from time to time for enemies, even though his way of the wind was active. since his past experience taught him that the ambush predators of this pit of fire were able to bypass its detection and manage to sneak up on him. To his credit, his paranoia was not misplaced at all, as he did not detect a massive lava hound flying towards him at all, but saw it visibly approaching him from the sky, dripping small amounts of sizzling lava drops from its skin every time it flapped its wings. One of the great mysteries that Max did not quite understand was how the slugs and these flying hounds were able to tolerate the boiling hot lava as if it were a sauna bath. Their skins, while rock hard, were not completely impenetrable, yet they were able to take a dip in flowing lava and leave it while being unharmed. "Oh, I'm not your snack, you disgusting-looking flying beast," Max thought as he clutched his sword and began fleeing in the direction away from the magma hound. One of the bigger problems that Max faced on this planet was that his stamina reserves depleted much faster than usual, as tasks like running and hunting took much more energy than usual. The warm air of the planet made his lungs feel like they were on fire whenever he performed strenuous activities, and while he had acclimatized to the environment after puking his guts out yesterday, he was still not very comfortable inside it, becoming a ball of sweat moments after starting his sprint. Flying Lava Hound, Tier 4, LV 490. A beast notorious for its incredibly resilient defense and slow mobility. Just flee if you encounter one, as killing them is next to impossible. A quick scan of the beast told Max exactly what he already knew about the beast, but what it did not say was that the most effective technique to kill a lava hound was to attack its insides when it opened its mouth to eat its prey or pant after a long flight. Not keen on letting it get close enough to open its mouth to swallow Max whole, Max took the second approach of making it chase him for a few minutes until it began panting heavily from the laborious hunt. Slowing down intentionally, Max allowed the beast to get closer and closer to himself, until it was in range for Max to launch a counter-attack. Changing directions suddenly, Max turned and leapt in the direction of the hound, catching it off guard as he launched an energy blast straight inside its open mouth. 250,000 critical hit. The energy blast destroyed the lava hound's throat and other vitals as its monstrous HP bar dipped by a whopping 60% by a single attack. Crash black smoke came out of its mouth as it crashed unsightly into the ground, as Max did not let go of this opportunity at all as he put a finger right on the beast's belly and used blood explosion ability to exploit its internal bleeding situation and give the beast a swift death. Hot. 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 Max complained as he pulled his burnt finger away from the beast's belly, cursing his luck to have touched its surface directly and not realizing that the lava hound itself was like a large cooking vessel of high temperature. Nonetheless, despite his personal pain, his killing technique was effective and the poor massive beast died from its internal injuries. System notification. You have killed a Tier 4 lava hound inside a neutral battle zone. You have received plus 300,000 EXP. Max was pleasantly surprised by this notification. It appeared as if one of this massive flying beast was worth 4 times the express of its lion counterpart. Chapter 474 Council of Monarchs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Day after day, Max went out to the pits of fire to hunt powerful fire creatures, as his constant struggle against the environment started to bear extra fruits in the form of constitution and endurance stat improvements from all the running around that he did in the high heat. By now, Max had hunted every major creature native to the planet and was slowly learning their attack patterns and weak spots, as every day he would return to the hut less injured than the previous one, showing Angekok that he was a fast learner. The only exception to this rule was the phoenix. By now Max had identified 3 different phoenixes in the skies of the planet, and all of them were without a doubt extremely terrifying hunters. Max had often heard tales about how the only beasts that could rival the illustrious dragon clan were the phoenix and the 9-tailed beasts, but only now did he understand that the saying was a bit under-exaggerated. Dragons were the most complete beasts in nature. Born with a high defense stat, relatively decent attack power, extremely high vitality stat, high mana, high intelligence and an unparalleled constitution. In stark contrast, if one saw the phoenix, it neither had high vitality, nor defense, nor constitution. But what it lacked in these 3 sectors it more than made up with its ludicrous attack power. If one believed a dragon's flamethrower to be devastating, they had clearly never witnessed a phoenix breathe fire in their life. Even if Max wanted to, he could never forget the scene where the phoenix hunted from the sky and rounded up 4 groups of flame lions, a total of 20 of them just for the thrill of the hunt. On a wide charred black field, 20 lions ran with their tails tucked between their legs, terrified of the phoenix chasing them as the phoenix breathed one fire attack and covered the entire battlefield, 400 meters wide with a torrential flood of fire, and killed all 20 flame lions with a fire attack at once. The scene of that fire attack, that turned solid land into a fire furnace, sent goosebumps down Max's spine as he understood why the phoenix was called a beast that rivaled the mighty dragons despite not having much of their well-rounded abilities. It was power, the raw power of being the supreme commanders of the element of fire, that allowed the phoenix to be a supreme species. Max knew he would have to face the beast once before his time on the planet was over, not because it was a necessity for him to complete Angakok's mission, but because he felt an indescribable calling from watching that beast manipulate the laws of fire so easily. Although he had the Agni Astra to make his mastery over fire as perfect as any phoenix, he felt that if he fought one and managed to take it down, his understanding of the element of fire would increase by leaps and bounds. But to do that, he would need a solid plan and a free day within his schedule to reach Angakok's goal with a day to spare. It was not a problem that he could approach today. Meanwhile, in the old Hall of Peace, the Council of Monarchs was an event organized once in every 25 years where the monarchs of Light faction all gathered to discuss the fate of the universe. This edition of the meeting was more important than ever with the defection of the Night King and the withdrawal of the Mercenary King from their circle, leaving the Light faction at their weakest point since the peace treaty had been signed in these very halls 5,000 years ago. For the first time ever, the strength of the Dark faction was nearly equal to that of the Light, and the bells of war were ringing. The participants in this edition of the meeting were 1. The Vampire Kingdom headed by King Regus Aurelius 2. The Elite Kingdom headed by Neatwit 3. The Barbarian Kingdom headed by the Savage King 4. The Human Empire of Hazelgrove headed by Emperor Cervantes 5. The One Night Kingdom with their Patriarch, Augustus 1 Knight 6. The Elf Kingdom led by King Leon Silver Knight 7. The Dwarf Kingdom of Dworgen, led by the Forger King 8. The Beast Kingdom led by Beast King Omar 9. The Angel Monarchy led by Michael 10. Kingdom of Life led by Benyager. Apart from these dignitaries, a few people tagged along such as Patricia 1 Knight, Prince Amon, Rohan Silver Knight, Archangel Sariel and Archangel Raphael. The atmosphere in the council hall was solemn as Michael took the lead to start the conversation. As you all know, the Dragon Monarchy has been torn with internal strife while we have defectors in the form of the Night King and the Mercenary King. While the Night King has outright decided to shift the laws governing his territory from the light to the dark, the Mercenary King has some sense and has not joined the Dark faction outright, but has sold his soul to them in return of monetary and territorial gain promises. The peace forces of Goddess Benyager have been attacked at the front lines and 7 planets have been thrown into the fires of war alongside 3 different monarchies. The Light faction is weaker than ever, and it is imperative that we put up a united front in these perilous times more than ever. Before we start the meeting and waste our breaths to discuss how to counter the Dark faction, those monarchs who want to take a wait-and-see approach, please raise your hands and spare me the trouble of trying to convince you. If you want to wait till the fires of war befall upon your lands, then sure, be my guest, wait till our forces have depleted and Lucifer is on your doorstep. So tell me, how many rats do we have in this room right now? Michael questioned as he scanned the room. Chapter 475 Conclusion of the Council. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Council of Monarchs. Michael's declaration undoubtedly increased the tension in the room. Amongst all the monarchs and the monarchies under them, the Angel Monarchy was the strongest and the staunchest supporter of the Light faction, which was why Michael was allowed to act so rowdy in front of his equals. The Beast Kingdom will be neutral in this war. Many participants on the other side are also beasts, and the Constitution considers all sentient beasts who have overcome their base desire to hunt a part of the Beast Kingdom. We will not take part in the butchering of our own kind but are willing to lend material and strategic support to the Light faction while assuring this council that we won't be sending a single shipment to the Dark, regardless of the price offered. Do not consider us as profiteering war merchants, we are simply doing what's best for the beast. Kind Beast King Omar said as he put forward his position as politely as possible, using fancy words to make it seem like he was skewed towards the Light faction when the reality was anything but that. Michael chuckled and clapped at Omar's facade. The Beast Kingdom, just like the Dragon Monarchy, was a neutral territory in the first place but had historical ties with the Light faction. Michael distinctly remembered the conversations he shared with Omar over a cup of wine as the two of them criticized his brother Lucifer for his stupid antics. Back then Omar behaved like he was the blood brother of the angels and that should anything ever go wrong he would stand there with the Light faction, but when push came to shove he was the first to declare neutrality. Very well, thank you for participating in this edition of the Council of Monarchs. God Omar, I feel like the next edition of this same meeting will be a lot more interesting, Michael said as he indirectly asked Omar to leave, which was a very rude move to make on his part. Thankfully Omar was not one to take offense over such small matters, nor was somebody who would overstay his welcome when his presence was not wanted, so he stood up and took his leave from the council, the sound of his departing footsteps making the hearts of the other monarchs feel heavy. Anyone else? Any other neutral parties amongst our midst? Michael asked angrily as he scanned the room, but there were no neutral parties amongst them anymore. Good, today God Hades is not here with us and I know that all of you understand why. While we are here sipping wine and playing council. His territory is under raid by the Dark faction. He isn't here because the moment he leaves his territory it would be destroyed in an instant, it's only because he is physically present there and is one of the most powerful gods with unhealable curses in his arsenal that the fighting is kept at bay. Eaglesnav.1 Oh, the war has started with his territory, but it will soon spill out to ours. The time for complacency is over, the time for eradicating the Dark for once and for all is here, Michael said as he banged the table in front of him strongly, reducing a section of it to dust. The Vampire Monarchy needs more time, we are not equipped for battle yet and I will not send my clansmen to the front lines until we have had sufficient time to prepare for war. I do understand the gravity of the situation and the Vampire Monarchy is committed to the security of the Light faction, but immediate deployment is out of the question. We are already fighting with the Mercenary Kingdom on our frontline planets, the barbarians they have stationed there have pushed us into a stalemate for decades now. With Avens defecting, the battle on those planets is only bound to get more intense. I cannot fight a two-pronged battle without preparing for it. So forgive me, ruler of heaven Michael, but you will not see a vampire reinforcement for your cause in the immediate future, Regis said calmly as he was not someone who would be pushed around by the rallying call of the angels. Throwing his men into war without proper preparation would spell disaster for internal security and the economy, and as monarch Regis could not make such a decision. Cervantes frowned. He had specifically sent Regis a letter 6 months prior to this meeting for him to start preparing for war, having taken notice that a war was imminent, but it seemed like the vampire monarch did not take his warnings as seriously as he should have. How much time do you need? Augustus one night asked Regis in an impassive voice. 18 months, Regis replied as Augustus nodded. The one-night monarchy will provide unconditional support for the war effort, we will cover for the men King Regis is unable to supply for the time being, but in return we expect King Regis to reduce tariffs and facilitate cheap trade to reduce the economic burden of the war on our people, Augustus said as Regis nodded in acknowledgement. Reducing export tariffs and providing discounts was something he could do. The Hazel Grove Empire will also provide unconditional support, although we are the furthest from the front lines. We understand the importance of defending the values of the Light faction and will not wait till the battle spills to our gates, Cervantes said as his words renewed the spirit of the meeting after all the depressing letdowns so far. Dworgen will increase the output of common weapons and provide as many weapons as it is capable of producing in the future. While us dwarves will not be able to contribute much as front-line warriors, we promise to provide cutting-edge battleships and long-range artillery weapons to the war effort with subsidized rates, the Forger King said as he pitched in his commitment to the war effort. Soon the others followed suit and tried to contribute as much as they could, but except for the Angels, the One Knights, the Hazel Groove Empire and the Kingdom of Death which was already embroiled in conflict, none of the other monarchies were fully committed to the war effort. The worst of them all was Benyeger, who wanted to push for a ceasefire and peace talks with the other side, but she was silenced in the war-minded council, garnering no support for her plea. She did agree to send some of her best healers to set up healing camps on the front lines to provide relief to the injured, but was apprehensive about sending her holy paladins, which were capable of using demon-slaying magic that was invaluable to fight greater demons and some of Lucifer's most powerful lieutenants. The council finally ended after 15 hours of heated discussions where the nerves of the strongest in the universe were tested. A great war was starting, and despite the fancy line up, the fact of the matter was that a lot depended on how the internal rebellion of the dragons ended up. Should the rebellion succeed and Dragoon be dethroned, the rebels were most likely to break neutrality and join Lucifer in his battle on the light faction, and should that happen, it would truly turn the odds overwhelmingly in the favor of the dark faction. For now, they could only pray for Dragoon to prevail. Chapter 476 Genius of Max. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Max's POV. Max's level had increased by 2 while he was asleep, which was a pleasant surprise for him, as it seemed like Mira was working hard on her end. Because of his soul bond with Mira, his leveling speed right now was half the speed it would be if he were on his own, but Max was not complaining about it, since if it were not for Mira, he would probably not even be tier 4 yet. The dragon soulmate of his had been carrying his leveling progress for a long time now while he catered to his lord duties, which gave Max absolutely no right to complain at all now that it was his turn to drive the wagon. Nonetheless, now that she was grinding once again, it seemed like he would get ahead of his planned schedule and manage to complete Angekok's schedule in time after all. Having spent 3 weeks in this fiery pit of hell, Max felt his constitution and stamina improve significantly. The heat was refining his body non-stop from the inside out, and he was no longer finding it too difficult to breathe or maneuver in the environment, as his body had acclimatized nicely. Oddly, his understanding of the element of fire also increased the longer he spent inside the pit, as he learnt new tricks from observing the beasts on how to use his existing arsenal of attacks. One of the most satisfying thing that Max had learnt was how to curve his dragon's breath attack. Up till now he had only ever breathed fire in a straight line and had never wondered if it could be bent as per will, as he had simply never thought it were possible. It was only when he was observing the lava butterfly, which emitted thin flamethrowers from its mouth that bent like ropes according to its will, that Max realized that flame attacks could bend to the will of the user. A quick discussion with Drax and half a day's worth of trials later, Max realized that if he created a channel of mana along the edges of his dragon's breath and used it as a guiding force of his attack, he could then bend it to his will and make the attack follow its path. It was like creating a channel for the flow of water to follow. If the channel bent at some angle, then the flow of water within would be redirected, and the same principle applied to fire attacks that could be channeled if one directed them within thick walls of mana while casting. Little did Max know that the move he had so casually picked up was one of the core principles of a difficult school of practice called firebending. The principle he had understood and mastered in a matter of few hours was what many specialized mages took years of practice to learn. Of course, guidance from Drax and the help of the Agni Astra to perfectly control the power of his fire attacks was a big factor in him learning this technique so fast, but it was also his sheer natural talent and comprehension that helped him pick it up so casually. After experimenting with it for a while, Max realized that he could bend it up to 180 degrees without any problems, as he thought of a plethora of applications for his new skill. If he were ever backed into a corner, he could cast this spell while being in the protection of a shield, as while he would be able to make his attack change directions midway, his opponent might not be able to do the same and will have no means to attack him behind the shield. Similarly, if his mastery over the move improved significantly, he could use it as a homing missile, making it impossible for someone to change directions and dodge his attack, as with him being able to change the direction of his attack too, he could always trace the user and make sure it hit. In the end, the applications for the skill were boundless, and Max was one happy boy to have learnt it. BVEC, meanwhile Rhea was under a lot of pressure with the rebellion of the smaller dragon clans against the hegemony of the Black and Golden clan. Everyday reports of clashes and casualties flooded her office as there was no limit to her rage. After a strenuous childbirth, she had only just finally recovered to her previous power level of a monarch at tier 8, but now that she was back to her prime her temper had gotten worse than ever as she fought her husband daily to allow her to be sent to the front lines. Dragoon knew that his queen was a ferocious warrior, but sending her to the front lines would mean that she would decimate the enemy forces, causing the casualties to pile up to such levels that the differences between the clans would become irreconcilable and the few calmer heads that were trying to defuse the situation would no longer have any voice of reason left to stop the war. The in-dot fighting had become so bad that Dragoon was forced to send Mira off to an undisclosed location for her safety and training alongside her nanny, as he feared that she would be assassinated or captured if she remained within the castle with her meager tier 4 strength. Although his daughter was a genius, she was too young for this fight as even the guards of the palace were at tier 6 minimum and she was completely outmatched under the circumstances. For now it was best if she did not stay near this chaos and return once things had diffused a bit. As if Rhea already did not have enough on her plate, another piece of disturbing news made its way to her office as she found out that some unknown ancient entity had separated Zippo from Max and taken him for unknown reasons. With Max being soul linked to her daughter and the times becoming so chaotic, this was the last piece of news that Rhea wanted to hear as he fears about the safety of her child only grew after reading this report. Chapter 477 Phoenix. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Day 32, Max was finally only one level away from reaching the maximum level limit for his tier, which was a testament to his growth rate which far exceeded even Angakok's wildest expectations. A part of it was because of Mira, who contributed 6 levels in total, but a major part of it was because Max had become very proficient in hunting the monsters of Pit of Fire and could hunt many more than he could in his first week here. Having learned fire bending, his attacks were now way more versatile than before, aiming precisely at the weak spots in the enemy's defenses, making 2 out of 3 hits a critical hit for him. Instead of completing his leveling goal today, Max had decided to take his chances at hunting a phoenix and had been tracking one's trail silently. It was a daunting task for him to track the phoenix and try and hunt it, considering that all 3 phoenixes on the planet were pretty much at the top of tier 5. But having already fought a dragon god once and succeeding, Max had more confidence in his abilities while fighting creatures above his tier. Even if worse came to worst and he did fail, Angakok would bail him out and deduct 5 days from his goal, which would still leave him with 3 days to complete his leveling goal before the 40-day threshold that the god has set for him. He stalked the phoenix for 3 hours, maintaining a respectable distance of 1.5 kilometers between himself and the bird until he got the opportunity to close down the distance after the phoenix killed a lava hound and was chomping down on the flesh of its prey. Max darted through the shadows of the boulders in the Pit of Fire, his vampiric senses on high alert as he closed down the distance and came within 50 meters of where the bird was feeding. He was prepared to launch a compressed inferno spell and take the phoenix by surprise when suddenly, a gust of hot wind hit him in the face. He turned just in time to see a brilliant flash of feathers and fire as another phoenix swooped towards him. Max's reflexes kicked in, and he dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding the bird's talons. Nirvana Phoenix, Tier 5. The beasts with the supreme control over the element of fire. The never-dying, reincarnating phoenix. Max had stalked the 3 phoenixes time and time again but had never realized that 2 of the 3 were actually brothers sharing the same nest, and was extremely unfortunate to have been ambushed while he was planning to take on one of the 2 unassuming brothers. Angry, the phoenix that was initially chomping on the dead carcass of the lava hound took to the skies and unleashed a flamethrower towards Max, who retaliated with the compressed inferno spell he had prepared, which neutralized the incoming attack easily before blasting the phoenix with its power. The bird shook off the flames as if it were nothing, as not a single HP point had reduced from its health bar, making Max realize that it shared the same immunity from fire attacks as him. The first Phoenix brother, which has discovered Max's ambush, continued its assault on Max by diving and clawing at Max with an ugly tenacity, as at the speed it was diving in, it was most likely crash into Max and then into the ground beneath because of the momentum it was going at. Max used Fake Out, and made it seem like he was going to cast a fireball at the incoming Phoenix before suddenly circling around the boulder he was taking cover against and making a run for his life. Max understood that while being double-teamed by two Phoenix brothers he stood little to no chance of victory, but while he was fast the Phoenixes were much faster. The force at which the Phoenixes flapped their wings was like a hurricane, and their maneuverability mid-air defied all laws of astrophysics he was familiar with, as they twisted and turned and changed directions without losing the slightest bit of momentum. The Phoenixes superheated the air around them, effectively reducing air resistance around their bodies to zero, which allows them to make such maneuvers. It's the same technique that fire god Agni used to break past his speed limit and go beyond what was physically possible in an environment where air resistance was a factor, Drax said in Max's mind as he provided Max with an explanation for the absurd speed of the birds. Max had never faced an opponent like this before. He tried to stay one step ahead, but the Phoenix pair was always right on his tail. They danced around each other, neither side able to gain the upper hand, as while the beasts were faster and capable of hurling destructive fire spells on Max. None of those spells were able to deal a single point of damage to Max either, as the Phoenixes soon realized that the opponent they were facing needed to be dealt with physical damage only and was immune to flames just like they were. Soon, they started to swoop in and grab him by their sharp talons, but Max was able to evade them using his Way of the Wind senses. After this grueling match of dodgeball went on for 10 minutes, Max began getting frustrated. He was used to being the predator, not the prey, and running pointlessly like this was completely unlike his usual style. He thought about summoning his melee reinforcements to find an opening through numbers, but the sheer attack power of the Phoenixes meant that even if he did summon them, they would become a charred corpse within seconds and would not provide any meaningful help in this fight. On the other hand, Max also wanted to use his attack spells that were not fire-based to try and deal damage, but the Phoenixes were flying so fast in the skies that it was impossible for him to lock onto their location and accurately direct a spell under such circumstances. The only option left for him was to try and wrestle the beasts, which was precisely what he did when one of them attacked him. With a fierce growl, Max lunged forward, trying to grab the Phoenix by its neck after it swooped in to grab Max in its talons. The bird was literally on fire and its body felt like a pot of boiling water, but despite the physical discomfort that Max was feeling, he clinged onto the beast's neck, which was terrified from this experience of a creature hanging by its neck and not burning to a crisp. Nobody had ever managed to touch the Phoenix and live to tell the tale, as even as a newborn, the flames on its body were powerful enough to deter every beast except its own kind which could touch it without taking damage. Today, however, an unknown vampire which was neither its master nor a member of the Phoenix clan managed to touch it and not die from the experience. After hanging onto the beast's neck, Max tried to mobilize his mana and conjure a Thunderblast, but for some odd reason he was not able to mobilize his mana to conjure any spell whatsoever while hanging onto the Phoenix's neck. "What's going on, Grandpa Drax?" Max questioned as he tried to withdraw his sword but once again failed to access his own inventory. "It's the bloodline magic of the Nirvana Phoenix, it's called magic cancellation. Anything that comes into contact with its body can no longer cast any magic," Drax explained as Max's frustration reached a boiling point hearing that the beast had such a broken ability. The Phoenix tried to shake Max off, taking a vertical flight and shooting straight towards the upper atmosphere like a rocket as Max desperately hanged on for dear life. With no other means to attack and the Phoenix's brother harassing him non-stop as the three of them ascended thousands of meters in the air, Max chose to use the only weapon in his arsenal that the bird could not negate as he bared his fangs and plunged them straight into the bird's neck. /////A/N. This bonus chapter is sponsored via Patreon collectively by my patrons. Thank you for all your support ////. Chapter 478 The Law of Fire. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Salty, that was the word that came to Max's mind as he tasted the blood of the phoenix for the first time ever. His decision to drink phoenix blood was on a whim because he could not conjure any other moves. However, the effects it had on his body were something he had never anticipated. The Nirvana Phoenix was a magical creature whose blood was one of the most critical components of several life-extending alchemical potions. It was rumored that the fresher the blood was the more potent its effects would be. However, nobody had ever thought that drinking it straight out of the phoenix's body was even possible because of the protective flames on the phoenix's body. Max was most likely the first individual in the history of the universe who was uniquely equipped with both the fangs needed to suck blood and an unnatural fire resistance that prevented him from burning to a crisp in front of the phoenix. The phoenix cried out loud as it felt dizzy from the rate at which Max was sucking on its blood. It shouted a desperate screech to its brother to help him shake off the attacker somehow, but the other phoenix had no relevant ideas on what to do. It had never faced such a situation in its life and could not think of a way to get the attacker off its brother's neck without injuring his brother in the process. Max clung onto Nirvana Phoenix's neck as if his life depended on it, his fangs plunged deep into its flesh. As he continued to drink the magical blood like he was thirsty since decades, the hint of saltiness was quickly replaced by an indescribable sweetness. A unique flavor that he had never tasted anything like before. The phoenix's flames roared around him, flaring to a next level of heat as an effect of some spell that it activated, trying to burn to the maximum in hopes of Max letting go of its neck because of the flames, but Max's body was immune to the heat. Max drank deeply, feeling the blood course through his veins and ignite a fire within him. He could feel his vitality stat improving rapidly, and his vision became clearer than ever before. He was almost outside the planet's atmosphere now, the pressure of the air changing around him causing his ears to pop, but Max did not let go. He could not pull away from the tingling sensation that was spreading throughout his body, making him feel a euphoria that he had never sensed before. As he continued to drain the phoenix, he felt a strange understanding about the nature of fire. It was as if the phoenix's knowledge was being transferred to him through its blood. It was a strange feeling, but he had never felt so alive, so powerful ever before in his life. Max began feeling an inexplicable connection to the element of fire as he closed his eyes and tried to focus his mind to try and explore this newfound connection. As he did so, he began to understand the nature of fire in a way he had never before comprehended. Fire was not just a tool for destruction, it was a force of transformation, of renewal, of purification. It could consume and destroy, but it could also create and give life. Max could sense the energy of fire flowing within him because of the Agni, Astra. He could visualize how the mana within his body was heavily infused with the element of fire, which was slowly coming to the surface of his skin and creating a layer of insulation from the fire of the phoenix, granting him the immunity he experienced against the power of the flame. Max realized that he could actively harness this energy to augment his physical abilities. He could use this energy to sharpen his reflexes and strengthen his muscles. It was like he had suddenly unlocked the level 1 of Way of Fire, gaining newfound comprehension of sensing his surroundings through the medium of fire just like he could via wind. He could sense the presence of heat, the subtle changes in temperature, and the movements of air currents with a level of precision that he had never before experienced. He knew that this new understanding would be a valuable tool in his future battles and adventures. As he finished drinking the last of the phoenix blood, Max felt a sense of gratitude towards the magical creature whose essence had unlocked this newfound power within him. He knew that he would never forget the lessons he had learned about the nature of fire, and he would always carry the phoenix's flame within him. System notification. You have killed a Tier 5 Phoenix within a neutral zone. You have gained plus 12 million EXP. You have absorbed the phoenix's knowledge about the element of fire and have accommodated its undying essence. The damage of all your fire-based attacks has improved permanently. System remark. Only an abomination like you, which is not meant to exist, can devour a divine beast like the phoenix for all that it is worth. System notification. You have leveled up. Error. You have reached the maximum limit possible for your tier and cannot level up anymore before tiering up first. Finally, Max pulled back from the Nirvana Phoenix's neck, his thirst quenched as the beast's dead body slowly lost its luster and its flames. Its phoenix brother in distress as it tried to grab Max by its talons and pull him apart from his brother's corpse, but the sheer speed at which the corpse and Max were falling towards the surface made it extremely difficult to do so. Max felt different, changed. His body having undergone a transformation, becoming more attuned to the element of fire. He felt a connection to it that he had never felt before, and he knew that he was capable of wielding its power like never before. Although he was falling towards the hellish planet like a comet, Max was not worried about his personal safety. He was calm and knew that with his newfound knowledge he could insulate himself from the heat caused by re-entering the atmosphere, and by compressing a dragon's breath, and using it to cushion his landing, he could survive the pitfall enough to live and tell the tale. He had gained a lot through this endeavor, more than he could have ever hoped for in his wildest dreams. Chapter 479 Regis's Letter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Angekok watched patiently as he saw Max devour a phoenix's blood. After living for over 5,000 years, Angekok rarely got excited or startled by anything, but today was one of those days where he felt his heart pumping slightly faster than usual. As a Tier 6 god, he had the opportunity to fight against a Nirvana Phoenix once, and he still remembered the burn marks left over his body as he suffered under the beast's attacks, all for trying to get a single feather from its back. He had greatly improved in strength since, and that experience was but a distant memory of the past, but even to this day it was vividly imprinted in his brain, which was why he could appreciate the feat Max had achieved today candidly. Angekok had expected the boy's stamina and endurance to improve in the harsh atmosphere of the pits of fire, which was why he chose this planet for his training over other options in the universe, as it not only helped him gain levels but also worked towards his stat maximization in the process. What he did not expect, however, was for Max to devour a phoenix's blood straight from its body, permanently improving his understanding of the element of fire and reaching stat maximization for two of his stats, namely Vitality and Constitution. Currently the boy had not only reached the level goal that he set for him way before the deadline, but had also partly completed the next phase of the training, which was stat maximization. Now that his endurance stat was half-way to the maximum for his tier and his vitality and constitution was already fully maximized, the only stats left for him to focus on were intelligence, agility, and dexterity. Since Angekok did promise him that he would help the boy speed up the process by 50% should he complete his leveling within the set deadline, Angekok expected to guide Max to reach the maximum potential for this tier in the next 30 days. Meanwhile, Julian Caesar, Sir, Patriarch Vega has recalled the border troops patrolling the outer planets of the Titus clan. This is an opportunity for us to attack and capture 2 of them. If you give the signal, sir, we shall deliver them for you within the next 2 days, the commander-in-chief of the Caesar clan's military said as he awaited Julian's instructions for attacking the Titus clan planets. There was a long-standing conflict between the Titus and Caesar clan, and the sudden retreat of the Titus clan troops from the border plants gave the Caesar clan a unique opportunity to seize them without much resistance, which was why the commander-in-chief personally requested a meeting with Julian to obtain the permission to go on with the raid. No, there will be no attacks on the Titus clan in the near future. Leave them alone, leave their merchants alone. Don't antagonize them in any way, Commander, Julian said with a sigh as his commander was greatly shocked by this stance of his patriarch. The commander waited a full minute in silence for Julian to offer an explanation, but there was none, so he saluted the man and took his leave as a dignified military officer. His job was to give the patriarch relevant suggestions and present the facts. However, the ultimate decision did lie in the hands of the patriarch himself. It was not like Julian did not want to jump at this opportunity himself. However, there was a profound reason behind why he did not. King Regis Aurelius had sent a letter to all the lords of Vampire Monarchy informing them about an upcoming great war. The explicit instructions from the king were that except for the lords and the prime ministers, the information was to be passed on to no ordinary civilian or government official. All the clans were given a year's time to boost their military recruitment and stock up on food reserves and weapons before the news about the Great War were made public, and panic gripped the common citizens. The reason behind Vega recalling his border troops was also most likely connected to the letter Regus Aurelius had sent, and although Julian wanted nothing more than to snatch a few Titus clan planets from under his nose, he also understood and respected the seriousness of the times which demanded that petty internal squabbles be set aside till the danger of the greater war was over. Albeit petty and eccentric, when it came to the greater good of the vampire society, Julian was an honorable lord. Meanwhile Asiva was not in a good mood ever since Max left, his absence weighing heavily on her as she poured all her free time into work, trying to stay busy as an alternative to not miss him too much. She was a little cranky and had grown a slight temper that made subordinates fearful of approaching her. However, her demeanor changed ever since she read the sealed letter sent by King Regus Aurelius. The contents of the letter were deeply disturbing and depicted a picture of a nasty conflict that would soon embroil the entire universe. In the letter Regus had stated that all lords and their bannermen would be summoned and deployed to the front lines and had to be prepared to fight and die with their full might in a year's time. He had given suggestions about how to stabilize the economy and prepare industries in advance to sustain the economic pressure that the war was about to generate, which put immense pressure on Asiva, who was trying her best to grow the Bloodfall clan holistically and with an eye for the longer future and not the immediate one. The details of the letter gnawed on her mind. However, the only other person who she was in liberty to discuss the contents of the letter with was absent indefinitely, leaving her to deal with all the mess alone. /////A/N. This bonus chapter is sponsored by patron Cervantes91, please thank him in the comments for this one. Also, a clarification, since some of you guys were rooting for Max to get a Phoenix pet. Max already has a pet in Mira and cannot get another one ////. Chapter 480 The Blood Shaman Class. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Max and Angekok were back together again in the confines of his space bubble. The duo had left behind the fiery pits and embarked on a new journey to an unknown planet. Max had hoped that completing his training ahead of schedule would earn him some praise from Angekok. However, as expected, the shaman god remained emotionless, not offering a single word of appreciation to Max. This time, Max didn't bother asking Angekok about their destination or the purpose of their visit. He had come to understand that his personal opinions and thoughts were of no consequence to Angekok. After traveling at incredible speeds through the universe for 4 hours, the duo landed on a lush green planet. The planet was covered with thick rainforests, and the climate and gravity were nearly identical to that of Earth, giving Max a sense of familiarity. However, the plant life was entirely different from the species he was accustomed to. Angekok moved calmly through the forest, and the trees seemed to bend and warp themselves to create a path for him to walk through. Max walked closely behind Angekok, marveling at his abilities and wondering when he would be able to move like him. I promised you, boy, that I would help you increase the speed of your stat maximization training by 50% if you completed my target, so here we are on one of my self-created planets to train you, Angekok said calmly, leaving Max surprised. Self-created planet. Max wondered in disbelief. The mere thought of the god's domain was beyond his comprehension. What might seem like a simple task to them would be akin to the power of the Supreme Creator for mortals like Max. If everything goes well and you do not disappoint me, we will be able to get this done within 20 days. However, I must insist that we do not waste more than 30 days here, Angekok continued, leaving Max's ears ringing. Stat maximization training usually took years, not mere days. Had it been so easy, the entire universe would have been walking on the path of the perfect warrior, and his principal back at the academy would already be a god. Max silently waited to see Angekok's plan, without voicing his opinions. How much do you know about the Blood Shaman class? Angekok asked rhetorically, expecting Max to not know much about it. Not much, Max replied honestly. He didn't want to present his superficial knowledge about the class in front of its god. The Blood Shaman class is not a support class, Angekok began, his voice carrying a note of finality. We are not meant to be back-end summoners, unorthodox healers, or specialize in curses. The Blood Shaman class is a superior class that can work as anyone, from non-combatant craftsmen to frontline assaulters. The class has three critical aspects: inscription/craftsmanship, replenishment, and manifestation. Angekok continued, his voice commanding attention. Inscription/craftsmanship refers to the use of the power of a creature's blood to perform all sorts of craftsmanship magic, be it inscribing curses on items, performing black magic through voodoo dolls, or warding in barrier protection magic. The procedure may change, but the essential ingredient is blood. Whether it is from an innocent creature, your opponent's body, or even your own, blood is a powerful tool. The universe works on an equivalent exchange, and by sacrificing the soul and blood of a powerful opponent, a blood shaman can refill their health bar, stamina bar, or mana bar. This is known as replenishment. We can fight in a battlefield without needing the modern potions because we can always regain health the old-fashioned way, Angekok said as he raised his nose slightly in pride. You may not think much of it in this age of alchemical boom where potions are mass-produced, but back in my day they were rare and the reliance on traditional healers was heavy. Even in this modern day, that ability is very useful even for a primordial vampire like you who can replenish his health via blood absorption. It's a good skill, but you still need external means to replenish your stamina and mana, Angekok said as he reminded Max that while he was special, he still had his own drawbacks. The third and most important skill that we possess is manifestation. This is probably the most important difference between us and regular shamans. While the regular shamans can just summon creatures, we can actually manifest them in their entirety in battle. Just like you can call on my power during battle, swapping your subconsciousness for mine, with enough practice and the fulfillment of some criteria you will be able to swap your power and give the control of your subconscious to any entity you please. If you don't wish to swap with an entity but rather keep your subconsciousness while manifesting their powers, it is also possible, provided that you have the blood of that entity in question. If you have half a brain, you would have connected these three skills to the three tests you probably would have given when you were being promoted. Yes, boy, these are the same three criteria your talent was tested on during the Tier 3 promotion test when you linked with me for the first time, Angekok said as he reminded Max of the Tier 3 promotion test and the three subtests he had taken back then, which were the three basic skills of the Blood Shaman. The first test was inscription/craftsmanship related. The second one was about replenishment of mana by sacrificing the innocent rabbits, and the final test was when he connected with Angekok for the first time ever and manifested his powers through his own body. For better or for worse, his destiny was greatly altered that day as he had awakened an ancient god whose immense powers had laid dormant and had stirred his return to the universe while becoming his chosen. So yes, while it would be otherwise impossible to perform stat maximization within 20 days for a mortal like you, it's a trivial task for a god like me. Dexterity is nothing much, it's just repeating a task that requires concentration again and again and again. While you will be able to create maybe one inscription in 10 minutes, I'll create 50 in a second. So while you may be able to manifest my powers for 5 minutes, those 5 minutes of me taking over your physical body and pushing it to its limit would be akin to you spending a year doing the same. As for the intelligence stat, I will dump a lot of basic information about the Blood Shaman class whenever I take over your body for you to review and digest once I'm out. For endurance stat, you will be put in a pool of excruciating poison while you recover between sessions from my summoning cooldown and review your knowledge of the Blood Shamans. Leaving only the agility stat left to master, which is a problem I'll give you a full 10 days to figure out how to solve, because our routine will be completed within the first 10 days. Angekok said as he laid down his devious plan to torture Max for the next 20 days.